Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live virtual session. I am Dhruv from People Matters, and I'll be your host for the day. This episode of the series is on winning the tech talent war, the do's and don'ts of this blazing job market. It's brought to you by People Matters in association with Scalar. We have seen professionals with highly skilled and the right skill sets in this new age of technology continue to be the bedrock for leading enterprises. In the face of market expansions, inflation, and a rush towards digital transformation, we look at an unprecedented war for the tech talent. Companies are fighting for the tech talent and are looking at creating new ways to acquire, hire, and retain talent. To find solutions, though, it becomes urgent that we zero in on the skills that will become a key differentiator in the success of organizations, especially in the future of work. Equally important is to get insights from industry experts on how we can source the right talent, build the right talent, and explore some of the critical strategies necessary to look at hiring the tech talent today. So, with this agenda, I'm glad to bring this session on the series of tech skills checklist. What are the competencies most in demand today to you? Before we begin our session, however, let me take a step back and talk a little bit about our partner, Scalar. Launched in 2019, Scalar by InterviewBit is one of India's top edtech startup focused on skilling and working with professionals across the country. Scalar's industry-vetted curriculum provides the highest quality of technology education in the world. Learners enrolled in Scalar are mentored and taught by tech leaders and subject matter experts working at leading organizations, which include Google, Facebook, Inuit, Microsoft, and Amazon. Scalar has generated better career outcomes in a short period, and at times, learners have seen up to 4.5 times the return on investment from Scalar courses. Now, without further ado, let me welcome our experts. First, we have with us Puneet Khurana, Group Head, Human Resources at Policy Bazaar. A seasoned HR leader with a diversified experience across industries and verticals. He brings a great load of experience having worked in IT, ITES, and BFSI sector in India, across North America and Middle East. He has been pivotal in transforming HR strategies and compliances for Fortune 300 organizations and has worked with renowned companies like Hero Group, Dell, IBM, and Stryker Global. Currently, in his stint as the Group Head, Human Resources at Policy Bazaar, he looks at the growth of the company and creating new and better ways of hiring tech talent. It's great to have you with us today, Puneet.
Thanks, Dhruv. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, great. Also joining us is Karthik Rao, Group Chief People Officer at Good Clam Group. Currently working as the Group Chief People Officer at the group, India, Karthik brings with him extensive years of experience. In the last 10 months, he's led over 10 plus mergers and acquisitions with the Good Glam Group and has driven mass hiring numbers, which has helped the group sustain its exponential growth. Welcome, Karthik.
Thanks, Dhruv. Hi, Puneet.
Yeah.
Hi, Karthik.
Next we have Sachin Bhandari, the Director Software Engineer at PayPal. As a person leading the software development on PayPal, Sachin brings hands-on experience on software architecture and engineering experience with an extensive exposure in managing global engineering teams, hiring, and growing engineering talent. So, welcome to this conversation, Sachin.
Thank, thank you, everyone.
Great. So, now I'll introduce our moderator for the session today, Abhimanyu Saxena, co-founder at InterviewBit and Scalar.
Thank you so much,
Abhimanyu,
Dhruv.
yeah, Abhimanyu, I'll give a short introduction, Abhimanyu, if that's okay.
Absolutely, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So Abhimanyu is the co-founder at InterviewBit and Scaler. He's very passionate about working with young individuals and helping them develop and scale their skill sets from 0 to 10, and comes with great experience in enabling companies look at skill set development and ensuring employees are able to actually meet what companies demand today. So it's great to have all of you with us today. And with this, I hand over the discussion to Abhimanyu, and have a great discussion, folks.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Dhruv. Uh, and to open the discussion, let me start with a very interesting problem statement that I'm sure entire industry has been trying to solve. This esteemed panel here have been at the forefront of it, which is the talent shortage in tech. Right. Um on one hand, we graduate close to 16 lakh engineers in our country every year, and a very interesting dichotomy is that I'm sure that all the companies have been struggling to just hire few quality engineers for their team. Despite India being one of the country where we, and it's quite admittable that one of the most hardworking people. Uh, uh, and at the same time, when we look at the other side of the table, which is the candidates learners, fundamentally, at least in my opinion, what I have seen is that the primary missing piece is the right guidance, knowing majority of the candidates who aspire to get into all the top tech companies like Policy Bazaar, Woodland Group, PayPal, because fundamentally they have no guidance. They don't even know that what are the skills, what are the capabilities that all these tech employers are looking for, and then the right mentorship. So in today's session, as the the overall title of the session itself is talking about what are the competencies in most demand, and I'm sure we couldn't find anyone better than the leaders at the tech industry itself. The engineering heads, the talent acquisition heads, who are at the forefront of it. So I'll open with the first question, which is very simple question, but I'm sure that we would find some very interesting insights from our panelists, which is that would love to hear from Puneet, Sachin, and Karthik that in your experience in last recently last 6 months, 1 year, or last few years, what do you see as the top skills? And the follow on, like within this domain, the question is that given the demand and supply challenge persist so much, particularly for the digital competencies, what are the reason that you believe, what are the factors that are contributing to this persistent gap? What is the role that you believe that the industry and the top organizations and the tech leaders and the talent leaders can play to bridge this gap, instead of just trying to find quality talent from a small pool? How can we make sure, as an industry, that what problems can we solve to increase this talent pool at the first place? Maybe I will invite Sachin first to maybe share his insights on this.
Sure. Thanks, Abhimanyu. I think this is a great question and is on top of every student who is passing out or in the final year of their graduation or even the employer's mind as well, like how to fill that gap. Uh, in my opinion, one of the reason for this gap is that candidates these days are tech savvy, but they are keywords driven. They just
Right.
hear about the keywords. Let if we take example of one of the most prevalent keyword these days is the data science, data engineering, those kind of things. So what they do, they just do some basic courses of these, try to grow horizontally rather than vertically, which means they got some keywords to mention on their keyboards, but where I mean resumes. But when they get appeared in the interviews in the first round, actually they tanked over there. So
Right.
to solve this problem, I think institutes like or the firms like Scalar or with I mean the organization that exists basically to fill the gap between the education and the professional life. I think they should play a major role. They should involve corporates to define the curriculum, provide the guidance to the candidates so that they should think vertically as well, not just focus on the horizontal aspect of the things, and they should not act as a jack of all and master of none. So few things they should definitely go from end to end, so that whenever a firm interview them, they should see like this candidate has that capability to go in deep. I mean, I'm from technical industry, right, or the IT industry in other way. So we are quite famous for the bugs or the challenges, right? So we don't know when this situation will arrive. So any candidate that we hire, basically, we see into this skill set where we can see, okay, now if I can assign this task to any ABC person, and rest assured that he or she would be able to solve that. That's my 2 cents on this question.
No, absolutely, Sachin. Thank you so much for a very, I think, insightful and specific input on this. And I'll emphasize on the fact that when we talk about high quality, technological work at any of the top tech companies, it's the depth that matters. It's like, for example, often I have seen the young ones talking about that. I would learn 5 or 10 different programming languages. Would that help me get a job? And the answer is no. Even if you know just one programming language, that's probably enough. But you should go to depth of that. Similarly, as you very rightly talked about, trying to accumulate the fancy buzzwords in the resume, instead of having depth in anything, that's actually often backfires. It's probably not only tech, it's equally applicable to, I'm sure, all the fields, but it is even more relevant, specific to tech. Puneet, maybe probably I would love to hear your inputs on this question as well. That what are the reasons for such a big gap between the supply of the talent and the demand? Why are, like, despite having so much youth capital, why you think there is such a small gap that has gotten created in our country? And how could probably what could be some of the initiatives that as an industry that could be taken to kind of fill this?
Sure. Thanks, Abhimanyu. Well, Sachin actually got to the real problem of it. Yeah, he was very specific in terms of what candidates and organization need to do. I'll just would like to add where Sachin had left on that. I think candidates, and I'll actually divide it in two parts: the candidates as well as the organization. So I'll first check on the candidates. I think they need to be prepared well while going for an interview. Yeah. I have seen in specifically in last couple of years because of the tech talent demand went so high that people were giving interviews haywire. They just did not know for which vacancy they are going, for which skill they are going for. एक call आया है, I am at currently at 10 lakhs, they are providing me 20 lakhs, I should go for the interview. Yeah, and that preparedness was not there. So it actually disturbs the entire ecosystem of from a talent acquisition perspective and from a candidate perspective as well. Then obviously to the freshers, getting out of the college for the first time, or maybe sitting in campus interviews, say no to things if you don't know. Yeah, as Sachin said, they just learned some jargons and they try to kind of elaborate on that. They have heard data science, or data science, so that's data mining. But what's in it for data mining? Yeah, so you need to really go into the depth of it and say no. It's very good to say I don't know about this, but I would love to learn more. Yeah, in case you can do some homework, nothing better than that. But even if you're not able to find something, it's always good to ask the interviewer. Yeah, maybe the person in a better position to give you a clear answer, which will give you a clarity as well. Would you really want to go in such stream, or you want to change your stream? Yeah, that's very important. Then obviously all the colleges have industry exposure. While you are doing your training, try to get as much industry exposure as possible. Yeah, that will break the expectations versus reality myth that we have. Yeah, or when we are in college, we have an expectation because we have seen in Bollywood or Hollywood movies how we go into the office, it's a flashy office and all the stuff. But maybe all the time it's not like that, specifically in startups which are in their kind of very initial stage. So they might not have a very fancy office, but they work very prominently. Yeah, so you need to get that industry exposure and then take that as a learning. Now coming to what organizations should have, I've seen many organizations, they prefer people from tier 1 institutes only, and I, as HR head of Policy Bazaar or Paisa Bazaar, we have never got that thing in a blockage in our mind. We have gone to tier 2, tier 3 cities, tier 2, tier 3 colleges as well, and we have hired many people. So it's a brilliant mix that we have. Yeah. And making sure that once we get these people, we give them enough chance to learn, perform, and grow. Yeah. Once we have that, obviously that demand supply gap would start filling in, because you'll be able to curb attrition. Once you're able to do that, there is obviously a balance between demand and supply. That imbalance happens when all of a sudden there is a huge attrition. We had seen the great resignation era and all those stuff. And I was also telling my parents I should have gone for a tech thing as well. You know because I've seen people getting 200% or 300% hike as well, and asking even for more. They have four
Right.
offers in hand, they're still going for a fifth interview. Yeah. So that something needs to be stopped at our HR level as well, at organization level as well, and obviously providing on the job trainings to develop them internally for future roles and all. I think that if you do that, keeping future in mind, that should be able to bridge that gap a lot.
Right. No, great, Puneet. I think very interesting points that you added. Which the first one, if I talk about fundamentally, if I try to distill that, like as Sachin mentioned, that hard skills, depth in hard skills is necessary, but probably that also is not sufficient. There are also these attitude and like soft skills that are super important to not only get hired but also succeed as the part of any high performance team. uh, the other part, which is the industry's role, which is also a very interesting point, and probably I'll take a little segue on that, uh, which is the, like, if I may call that a barrier, that or an entry barrier, that like in the past, of course, there was a strong correlation between people coming from top institutes and then performing well. That created a little bit bias into maybe in the industry, that we should hire more from there. But of course, in the today's world, which is with hyper connected world of internet, of course anyone can learn, right? Which has led to like a lot of very high quality talent also coming from places or backgrounds which we might not have seen before. uh, and hence I think being very open minded about like focus on the skills but not the titles that an individual have, that sometimes often leads to a much bigger talent pipelines being created and reducing the demand supply gap that has gotten created. So great points there, Puneet. Karthik, I would maybe like would love to take your opinion on this like Sachin very nicely articulated the necessity of depth of hard skills. If you can maybe add a little bit about that, what are the gaps that you have seen in the attitude and soft skill side of the candidates, where you felt that like this person needs to change the attitude or the mindset or the goals a little bit, if they really intended to make a great career in high quality tech product companies.
Yeah. So, so here are my 2 cents, right? So there is total addressable market and the total serviceable market. 16 lakh engineers is equal to 16 lakh good engineers, right? So I think the first thing is that the numbers are different because everybody is wanting to fight for the top, say 30, 40, 50%, right? So I think one is, of course, the fight is for getting the larger share of the pie of the good talent. Second thing, I think what Puneet said, in my head, hiring forever has been buy versus build, right? So there will be some talent you'll get ready to deliver, and there's some talent you have no choice. And I think, the more things change, the more they remain same. I think Infosys many years back started hiring from tier 2, tier 3 colleges, started investing in them, and as a $1 billion company, we are all talking the same thing that Infosys started with, right? So I think one thing is that core fundamental, that as an organization, Microsoft has started their own institute in US where they are doing engineering courses, right? So I think the long-term solution is to kind of build talent and become an employer of choice where people are queuing up for you, right? So I think that's a journey. Different companies are at different age and stage, right? Now, in terms of talent attitude, I think we are the creators of that attitude. So I don't know if I can complain. It's all of us giving 200% hike and then complaining that the attitude theek nahi hai. So I think we are part of the problem. I also believe, I think last 12 months and maybe slightly before that, post pandemic, with the cash flow and inflow into the market, I think things really went down in terms of companies wanting to win at any cost, right? I believe in a long enough timeline, life is an equalizer. People who went for 200% hikes without capability will be the ones questioned on performance delivery and might end up on the wrong side of the table, right? And that's what probably everybody is worried about suddenly when the recession comes, right? So I think you've taken the surf on the highest tide, you have the maximum chance of failing, right? So I think it's a learning curve. It's difficult to say no to money. These are very young folks, who have kind of. So I think some bit of patience, and I'm more empathetic than critical of their behavior, as I said, because I truly believe we are part of the problem. But I think hopefully next 12 to 24 months, people will realize that they really need to go back to the core and functions of culture, people, growth, behaviors, right? Long-term investments. So I think that's the curve I have already started seeing. I think people are not getting 100% hikes, at least in last 2 or 3 months. Companies are conserving cash, right? And they are focusing on ensuring the top talent doesn't leave, right? So I think we're kind of already hitting that space.
Right, right. To add to it, one more point that probably I will also add is that, like a high salary, there is absolutely nothing wrong with someone, earning a high salary, but it has to be backed by the impact and value you can create.
It's the
With
valuation game. It has been the company valuation game. It's
right,
not the value you create. It's about what your perceived value is, right?
right,
So
right.
I think value even on candidates level.
Absolutely. So even on an individual level, like if the industry sudden boost, and a lot of people got hired at salaries where actually with their skills and impact they cannot even justify, then definitely that is not sustainable. That cannot carry on. That simple math of or the economics. Uh, but of course, as long as someone gets elevated with more skills, more capabilities, or actually can add more value to the company, only then. So hence I think fundamental is that salaries increment backed by strong skills and capability to add value to the organization, only that is sustainable. If someone even commands in a hot market just because you have four other offers and some other well-funded startup gave you a higher offer, but if you are not really that capable, then sooner or later the bubble is going to burst. And hence one thing that often advised to the candidates, that even in a hot market, when joining a new company, set yourself for success, not for failure, right? And what I mean by that is that if you just keep pushing for more and more senior position or higher and higher salary, the expectations from you are also going to be very high, right? A better, more kind of growth driven path might be join at a role where you can genuinely justify with your capabilities and impact, and then try to get promoted there, right? Because then that is going to be much more sustainable. uh, I think many of the I have heard some of the larger organization often have this policy of downgrading, particularly when hiring for the senior role. That join at a position one level below where your capabilities are, and probably get promoted in 6 months, instead of directly trying to join at a like position which is a level or two level ahead of where you are. Uh, so
Look, Abhimanyu, how you're talking, right? 6 months promotion in my age and time was a dream.
yeah,
We didn't get promoted for 2 years. I'm saying, of course, it's the T20, right? So I'm saying even in talent, it's less 6 months promotion, and I get that. But I genuinely feel, I think the life is a great equalizer, right? So I'm saying you can tell me, I can tell them. They will have to learn this the hard yard. It's also new for everyone, right?
no, absolutely. There's a very interesting audience question that has come in as well, which maybe let me take that one, which is more from the talent acquisition perspective. That of course everyone in the talent acquisition fraternity or the hiring managers community, building a strong pool or pipeline have always been a problem. Would love to get input from everyone in the panel, that what are the strategies that worked for you to actually find new sources of talent. And as we were talking, that if we only limit ourselves, that I'm only going to look at people from the tier 1 colleges or people from top tech companies, that automatically constricts the amount of talent pool available. Would love to hear inputs on that. What strategies really worked for you to find more tech talent? Maybe Sachin, maybe you can share your inputs on this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think the key answer to this question is the diversity. Like, we firmly believe that talent exists everywhere. It's about how equipped we are to basically identify that talent. Like, if we keep hiring from tier one institutes or tier one companies or tier one cities, our our organization's culture will become more monolithic. Like,
Absolutely.
we need more diversity in every field, be it's a gender-based diversity or it's a talent-based diversity or it's a thought process-based diversity over there. So if we have to truly implement the diversity, and this diversity should not be a jargon or a buzzword over there, we need to ensure that our talent should be diverse enough. Because if your employees are from diverse backgrounds, you don't need to do anything artificial to maintain that diversity. Second thing is there, it's quite easy for tier one institutes students basically to get the job. But for tier two, and especially if I talk about the tier three cities colleges, when their candidates gets passed out from there, they have to struggle a lot. They have to do the real hard work. And in order to run a team, you need every kind of player. You can't have the 11 Sachin Tendulkars in a team and win that match. You need to have folks like Pandya or Jadeja as well, which comes from these tier three cities as well. So with that thought process, especially if I talk about the PayPal, we highly encourage folks from the those known so much famous colleges or the say famous companies. Basically, we hire them, we train them, and we learn from them as well.
Right.
That's my take on that.
No, great inputs, Sachin. And I will also add one thing that often, as you talked about diversity, generally, what I have seen is that often diversity comes in as an afterthought. That like when it already becomes a problem, that we have two monolithic team. Often, when we say diversity, often people hear only the gender diversity, and that is also not true. As you talked about that, in order, particularly if it is a consumer tech company, it's very important that people who are building it is a fair representation of people who are using your technology as well, to be able to serve them, to have that diverse life experiences, like diverse backgrounds, to be able to contribute to the product building process. uh, and diversity, I very strongly believe that diversity is not a problem to be solved if your input hiring strategy itself is pretty open, where you do give an opportunity to everyone, you try to find talent from all the sources without any bias, then probably you will never have a diversity issue at the first place to be solved. Great inputs, Puneet and Karthik. Would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Sure, Banu. Well, and I'll just quickly add, I 100% agree with you and Sachin, whatever you've said. I think this is right there. Just adding to putting a filter right at the hiring level. Yeah. Now, we need to see as hiring managers or as talent acquisition is what do we require for that particular job role that we are hiring for. Yeah. Let's say I want to hire, a testing guy, or maybe a QA. Yeah, I'm typically going on a tech skills. I don't need that high-fi communication skills in that particular person. And then rejecting that candidate on low communication, that means I am not aligned with what I require for my particular position. Yeah. So I need to absolutely know what are my must haves in that particular positions, and what are my good to have things. Yeah, must have I should have for sure, or the candidate should have, and good to have, even if on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 being least and 5 being highest, if the person is 2 or 2.5 as well, I still can take a chance. He's trainable. I can train that guy within the system. That one. uh, Second is, I'll just go with two questions together over here. Then upskilling on strategies as well as the cost effectiveness. The best is when it comes to strategy as well as the cost effectiveness is how ready your employees are to grow within the organization. Yeah, in one of my previous conferences, well, I took this example when vegetation was happening. The entire the greenery of that thing got the earth gone away, so greenery was slightly up. Giraffe took an extra effort to actually go on to the top, stretch himself, go on to the top and eat that greenery. That's how it could survive. So that means that that zeal coming from an employee or the zeal coming from an employer to train the employee has to match with each other. And that's the most cost effective and the best strategy to have the best talent around.
Makes sense. Karthik, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I would like really love to intellectualize it and say we've cracked it. I think we have not, right? I don't think we are focusing on upskilling. We really needed people who have two hands and can code, right? And also I think a lot of problem is also when HR, and I'm saying me inclusive of it, has been equating communication to good English, right? I've had some amazing people who have extreme clarity of thought, can articulate, but just don't speak good English, right? So I think, honestly, diversity used to be like a virtue to possess. It has almost become a necessity because you don't get people, so you have no choice but to be diverse. I think the challenge is inclusion. Uh, because of remote working, you have invited someone to the party, you have not invited them to the dance floor, right? And there is a zameen asman ka fark between the two. So we log aa gaye, what we are really wanting them to do is good code. And you know what? I think again, I'm saying everything is just about thinking slightly long term. Average coders, higher bugs, more rework, delayed launches, more spend on QAs, technically in a long enough timeline, it's a costlier proposition, right? Obviously, because it's TA and it's front load investment, it looks like great. I've got 10 people, but what happens is faster attrition, uh, average coding, and it's a vicious loop, right? Which is so difficult to. So I think two things I believe we can do is one, can HR people, can we have more engineers in HR background, right? Can we have that cross pollination where HR people beyond a point cannot do technical tests, right? So what we do is go to Scalar or interview Vector and say, hey, can you filter it for us, right? One is long-term solution that all good companies have done. I think also like educating HR, where a lot of HR folks sit with the technical folks. So like one of our interview questions is, do you know the difference between a DevOps engineer and a site reliability engineer? Most kids don't even know the difference, deep difference between the two, right? So I think, can we really get into the game? But upskilling, I don't think we've been struggling to get people. I think upskilling is like the next stage, uh, and I'm considering at least myself in that, because we are a startup. We are really focusing on ensuring we do the basics right before I can really do like my aspirational stuff. In terms of cost effective hiring, I think one thing that really works is ESOPs. I think very practically, a lot of people do value wealth creation, right? If you have cash constraints, ESOPs is a great tool. I think if you are able to make these people work with a lot of senior leaderships, like can it be a leaner team working with CTOs, CPOs, CEOs? I think the trade-off is, can I get great quality of people to work with? So you really need a moat as to why would they choose you, right, over others. And if cost is a constraint, and it is, right, I think it's tough. So two companies, uh, both good, but one with funds will defeat companies which is very good but has no funds. So fund is super critical, important factor. But that's the grand reality in my view. I don't think this
Right.
aspiration.
I do have a follow-on question, which maybe Puneet and Sachin can also add on to, which is, when we talk about, and like overall, the entire ecosystem, uh, there is definitely always competition to, of course, hire talent. We all have seen multiple instances where you give an offer, but like the person might have other competing offers and might or might not join. And second is also retaining the talent, right? So, and of course, as we often, I'm sure all of us have seen that it's impossible to say that I would retain people because I will give them the highest amount of money. Money is one variable, but it is impossible to compete on just the one variable, because if you take that strategy, there will always be someone or some other company which might pay a little more to the individual, right? And that's a good thing as well. That's indicative of a good economy, and I'm sure everyone wants to be in a good economy. Would love to get inputs from you all that what strategies have worked for you all in the past, which helps win the competition, either when it comes to like hiring new talent or even retaining the talent that you have. Of course, apart from we have to be competitive in the salaries, but that cannot be the only edge.
Yeah, I think both Puneet and Karthik well articulated that thing that money is a quite fancy thing, but life is an equalizer, right? I mean, they will understand what are the real core values they want to work with. So, in order to retain or hire the new talent, I think companies should be upfront about their core values. Like some company says excellence, honesty, fun. These are core values. Some company says we are diversity, we believe in equality, or blah blah blah. I mean, many buzzwords basically these organizations use. But when you hire a talent, they actually feel like how true these statements are. I mean, if I take example, whenever we publish a new rec or the new position, basically, we first try to look into the internal teams because there are many organizations of sizable amount. I'm pretty sure if they look more deeper into their existing talent, they would find someone better suitable over there. So rather than hiring someone from external at senior positions, is there an opportunity if you promote someone from internal team itself? It will solve many problems. First, employees will feel more encouraged. They understand that companies from end to end, and also they feel privileged over there as well. And try to retain the talent at the other levels. So try to see if there is someone basically who can play that role. So this will solve both the problems like you can retain the talent for the longer duration. But at the same time, when you hire new talent, that talent would be assumed as okay, no one in the company can play that role. So that person is bringing something new to the table. Everyone is happy to listen to them, happy to learn from them. So it creates a great inclusive culture as well. So these things actually helped with us in the past. So we will continue doing that and happy to learn from Puneet and Karthik like what are the new things we can adopt on that particular area.
Thanks, Sachin. Thanks. Uh, I'll be a little diplomatic in this question, to be very honest, because being in HR, and I'm sure Karthik and Sachin would agree with me on this. We have burnt hands in the past. Be it developing talent inside, buy or develop it, either ways. Uh, so I think it has to be a proper mix of it, and there is no particular number. It cannot be 50-50, it cannot be 60-40, 30-70 whatsoever. uh, every organization might have a different requirement, might have a different demand, depends upon time to time. But two cents to it would be that internally developed people will have they would know your organization very well. They would know what is the need of the hour, what is required when, and how to maneuver around. If there is an issue, they know how to really go ahead and get the approval chain activated, get it fast, launch it quick. रात को मैं हम इसको live करना है and all those stuff. They would know it. Yeah. Vis-a-vis the new people that we hire, they would become a fresh perspective to the entire scenario. Yeah, they will have a few ideas from their previous experience that this is what worked for us in the past, or this did not. So obviously, an amalgamation of both. But what is the exact quantity? That's typically said in hotel management language, or in cookery language, swadanusar. Yeah, what your organization's taste is, what is the requirement. You can actually go ahead and maneuver around between what is the percentage of new hire, what is the percentage of internal development. But as rightly said by Karthik, skill uplifting is still something that we are struggling. Yeah, because everyone is not ready. That we cannot have 50% or 60% of Janta all of a sudden taking up new roles or maybe bigger roles. Yeah, we always struggle with top 5 or top 10% of our talent, retaining them, developing them, growing them, making them ready for the next role or maybe next level or whatsoever. Yeah. So again, there is no magic stick to this. There are no magic numbers to it. You have to really see what is the need of the hour and answer it accordingly.
Makes sense. Thanks for it. Karthik, over to you to add any inputs on this.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot to add. I think one thing which we can do is we've been playing with the bell curve and the average distribution law of on performances, right? I think some of the best companies that I know or I've been following are moving to power law distribution, right? Where their top 10% talent gets paid 50, 60, 70% more than the second best. Right. So Virat Kohli per Instagram page gets 500% paid more than the second best, and nobody complains, right? So I think what's also happening is we'll have to probably solve this at a micro level rather than a company level. I think tech will have its own culture, right? Every CTO drives its own culture. Uh, can we solve technology at a micro level where the top leadership team can stay consistent for next 3 to 4 years? Can we solve that piece first? Right, because it's a domino effect, right? All good leaders will get their next line, right? And the ownership was on them to kind of engage it. So I would say, can your top 25% people in terms of talent and hierarchy remain same for next 3 years, is what we are focusing on. Let's solve that piece. Right. I think that's a great way for you to have contextual knowledge, career growth, and success stories, which can kind of help people on the ground. But as I said, I think we also need to understand that technology is not yet in its teen. It's 2013, 14 when India really came on its own in terms of technology, right? Cash on delivery, in my view, was one of the biggest breakthroughs that suddenly made internet exposed. Geo came in and further kind of made it available to the last mile in India. It's an industry 10 years, not even 10 years old. So I don't think we have still understood the complexity. I don't think any internet company has been able to do a great job of setting goals, OKRs. We are still, the goalpost is changing every quarter. The requirements is changing every quarter. One year you're scaling up, other year you're blunting down, right? In that kind of atmosphere, what you really want to do is preserve your core. So in my reading, all long story short, can I solve the most important puzzle of leadership and the key top core leadership within them, which I believe we have done, and I would want to believe it's kind of really helped us.
Makes
I,
sense.
I just I just want to add to what Karthik said, and I echo you, Karthik, because I've seen that here in Policy Bazaar and Paisa Bazaar, we had been able to retain our leadership. I think I joined about 7 years back, and I have not seen any of our leader in last 7 years leaving us. That actually gives a very, very strong base that we have. And obviously their DRs and then their DRs, you rightly said it's a top down effect. They tend to stick around. So that great era of resignation came, it actually didn't affect us much, as much as affected the other tech companies, because our leadership was pretty strong. They were pretty stable at that thing. So I agree with you 100% on that.
And companies that really focus on culture pre-pandemic, right? In pandemic, people were really skeptical to lose a comfort, trusted, known culture to a unknown culture जहां मैं मिलने नहीं वाला हूँ अगले 1 साल. And that's why the offer to joiner ratio dropped insanely, right? So
Agreed.
I think culture, as I said, we are all thinking last one quarter, 2 quarters, 1 year. I'm saying let's look at probably from 2014 how it has evolved. We are in a midlife crisis of tech, as I say, right? We are all confused, but we don't know. But I think we are kind of reaching that maturity stage. It'll take its own leaps and bounds, but yeah, sure, that's where I think we are.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. I think even here at Scalar, like as you all pointed that uh, stability of the leadership is percolates down automatically, and that is generally rooted in a culture, mission-driven nature of the company, cohesivity. Even here at Scalar, probably almost all the leadership positions are hired just once. Whoever joined, they have not left. Although we have only existed for 7 years, unlike probably PayPal, etc., which have been much longer. But that is what we have seen. That for most of the leadership position, if you have stability, then it will automatically trickle down, because that also sets the culture. That makes sense. I also have, another very interesting pattern that I would love to take inputs from you all, which is, like, people, as we were talking about, build the talent. And we talked about, instead of, for example, if there is a new position, instead of trying to just first hire from outside, is there someone internally in the team, maybe in a different role, who could transition into that? A recent phenomena that I also observed, which probably was also an outcome of, uh, the shortage at the first place, that a lot of people who, might have been in a different kind of job roles for many years, uh, and then built skills and transitioned into tech and succeeded greatly. If I may talk about few incidentals, I came across a gentleman who completed his automobile engineering, worked as an automobile engineer for many years, and then he learned technology and transitioned into, the software engineering domain, maybe 4 or 5 years back. And just in 4 years he have been able to grow so much, that now he's leading a team of 100 engineers in a one of the top tech companies, right? So what have you all seen such transition, which is the T-shaped kind of, knowledge that, they have seen maybe large scale of operations, execution, people management, etc., but in some different industry. And then after having built, because of course, as we all know, like learning any new technology, if you have curiosity and you have willingness to go in depth, fine, maybe a year or so, anyone can build that. But any thoughts on, people who are transitioning from different domain, and what are the variables that make them succeed or not be able to cope up when they transition into, the domain? This has been actually very common in the West, for many years, and you will find people that who might switch over the domain. In India, this is coming out as one of the newer phenomena. But any observations that you might have seen in the Indian tech industry on this?
No, I mean, rightly mentioned that it was quite common in the West. Like, I mean, I can give an example. In my last organization, I was working with a client. He was a funeral photographer, basically,
Oh,
over there. So whenever the funeral, they used to host some parties over there, and they need to play the videos where they have to be ensure the balance. Like, it should be sad, and it shouldn't be too sad that everyone starts crying. So he had that expertise. He worked in that area for 20 years. But then he joined some Udemy course of database, and then pushed himself into the database area at the age of 53. And then he
wow,
was the top performer within the 2 years in his organization. So I
wow,
could see it's all about the zeal that drive you. And whatever the work that you do, if you do with the pure commitment, I mean, that we could see in that movie as well, right? Amir Khan's movie. If you want to be wildlife photographer, then you should not worry about Sharma ji kya kahenge, right? So with that perspective, I am a big advocate of switching the careers. And in India, we can see that trend right in recent years, just because we have more job opportunities, more startup culture is there, people's skills are being valued. Now if you want to work in the software industry, you don't need to carry the computer engineering degree. Even if you are graduate in the fine arts, but you understand the system, you can work in that area. Now we are becoming more inclusive, more understandable, and this pandemic especially actually taught us a lot. Like earlier, if you work from one day for work from home in a month, you will like, why you didn't come to the office yesterday, right? But these
right,
days, like as Karthik mentioned, sometimes we don't even meet within a year. So
right,
these trends are changing, and we should be inclusive because India is a highly populated country, as we are about to beat China as well, right? So we don't know, especially the tier 3 or tier 4 cities. Even parents are not aware like what is the right career for the kids. Just engineering or the doctor were the two prominent areas. Like at least when I was being graduated. Fortunately
right,
for me, my skill sets and my passion aligned, but my
right,
parents didn't have any idea like where they should put their kids into. But these days parents are being more inclusive. Still our market is not that big. So as an industry, I think it should be our corporate social responsibility as well. Like we should give more chance, we should be acceptable for taking those risks, and we should be inclusive of open market as well, rather than just being monolithic of the graduation or the degree or the skill set that person is having.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Uh, to add to that, recently I also observed very interesting, kind of personas who have been, joining Scalar as well to upskill themselves. So I may take some quick examples, and that might be very interesting for the audience. Uh, there is a serving IPS officer who wanted to spend 9 months and learn programming with strong fundamentals. There is an individual who I came across who has been a practicing lawyer for almost 10 years, who is learning programming and explore careers. There have been like these are like more of indicative, but people who are chartered accountants, who are then kind of spending a year to learn technology with strong fundamentals. There are industrialists, so people who have been running, let's say, certain industry for many years, and even and different with different goals. Some might have a goal of transitioning into a tech role. Some might want to let's say learn data science, etc., and apply into what they already do. uh, but fundamentally what I have seen that like majority of them are able to like compete equally and sometimes even outperform even people who might already have software engineering backgrounds, right? uh, and I think one interesting transition that India is seeing early signs of, but probably would we would only see more of that happening in the coming years, which is the industry becoming more accepting to that. By default, probably like if someone's resume says that I have been a chartered accountant for 7 years, it might be pretty, and after that probably the person says that I have as such you were mentioning that the person did a course on Udemy and learned databases and then switched over. In India, probably that's yet to kind of become more accepted. And if I connect it back with the question that we asked a little while back, the opportunities or that the some of the ways to widen the talent pool. Uh, this might, apart from as doing the right thing, this is also in a way beneficial for I think talent acquisition fraternity, because this opens up a very interesting large talent pool for you if you are willing to kind of evaluate them. Of course, the hiring bar couldn't be reduced. The hiring bar has to remain as high as it has to be. But I think this might also be a very interesting talent source for the companies, where people might not have done a degree in software engineering or might not have worked for many years in the software engineering in the past, but people who on their own are taking so much effort to learn and transition, that also shows a very strong intent. Uh, so I think that might be a connected thing that this might also a great way to increase the talent pipeline. Puneet, Karthik, like in your experience and your observations on
No,
maybe
no,
a criminal photographer or a ex-army man transitioning into software
no, yeah,
engineering.
I have very, very different views on this. I think we are exception is not a rule, uh,
Of course.
and this is 10 years away, right?
Correct.
What we are talking. I'm saying Zoho also has been poster boying one peon who became an engineer. How many peons are engineers in Zoho? So I'm saying this is top bottom 5%, 10%. These are exceptions. I don't think they are the rule today. I don't think they will be in the next 2-3 years. Maybe, hopefully, I would be happy to be proven wrong. I don't think this will fall into your majority of hiring. It might increase your hiring pool by the last mile, right? It's
Mhm.
as a destination, I would love it, right? I would love if I see in my head, coding is a language. It's like English, Hindi, right? Coding is nothing but language. Uh, I have, on the contrary, realized when people are freshers
Mhm.
and don't have a baggage of a PHP or a React, are far more open to learn because they have less unlearning to do. Once you have learned certain languages, your biggest problem is, I'm so proficient in Hindi, I'm so comfortable in English. Now to learn Malayalam will require a very high degree of intent, or market will force me to learn it because I'll become obsolete, right? So I think relevance will become critical. I think one interesting thing that me and my CTO has been discussing is, can we go outside India? Because
Mhm.
India talent is becoming super costly,
Mhm.
and international talent is apparently more cheaper than India talent, right? So what maybe West did to us with BPOs, right? I think we have looked at, we were in conversation with some company in Indonesia, and their tech costs were like pretty muted as compared to ours,
Right.
right? And we're like, hey, is it a good idea to maybe go and do some A/B testing to get some talent outside India and have offshore, considering COVID has made it more realistic for people to work from anywhere, right? So I think that, I believe, can be the real opening of a global talent market availability, rather than waiting for a chartered accountant to realize his dream after three idiots. So I don't see that happening. Yeah.
No, that's a very interesting point, Karthik. That, of course, in the tech and post COVID, it has truly become a global talent pool. Like we have been able to remove all the geographical boundaries from that. Uh, and let's like, given we have like 5 more minutes on the conversation, let's maybe talk about this, global accessibility of talent pool, which works both ways. Of course, Indian companies will have an opportunity to hire from other markets if the cost or the competence is not in the right fitment in this region, and vice versa as well. That another, on the flip side, I think one of the reasons for even Indian salaries getting increased have also been the contributing factor to that, have also been that a lot of people have been able to, particularly post COVID, a lot of Indian engineers have been able to, get job offers which are in US dollars, right? Let's talk about that, and then probably we will conclude. Puneet, Sachin, any thoughts about the true global, the borderless, the geography-less nature of particularly talent sources that is evolving in the coming years?
I would say it depends upon the industry. Like if we purely talk about the tech, I think boundaries doesn't exist. Even in the past, boundary really exists. It's like that we were paid because of geographically because it was cost effective for the companies, but pandemic actually proved too good for the candidates. Like now they can talk in terms of their talent. Like if similar talent works from India for 8 hours, similar talent works in US for 8 hours, just being he lives in the US was getting 3 or 4 times more than what the talent is in India. All right. So I think that's a good move. Surely not great for the companies, but from talent point of view, it's a really a good thing that happened. But at the same time, we should be mindful of the economy as well. Like I mean, because it leads another issues over there. For example, the cities or the areas where we have the IT industries, we could see the real estate prices over there goes really high in last 1 or 2 years as well, just because of that. And for the non-tech folks, basically, it becomes kind of not possible for them, not feasible for them, basically, to even go beyond that. So that theory of economies should also being into the play, but for talent point of view, I think it's good. Like what's your true value is, true potential is, they should be paid accordingly, and you feel confident as well that I'm not being criticized or being there is no racism kind of things as well over there. That's something I want to add.
Absolutely. Puneet, maybe I would love to hear your thoughts about this, that when there's a widely diverse pool available, and as Sachin talked about that, racism or, the cultural integration. Another very interesting point is that, when you are hiring from one domain, of course, the cultural integration within the team is much easier. Any thoughts on that?
Um, See, I mean, that totally depends on your nature of business as well. Yeah, I agree with this. Without even second thought, that we are typically into geography-less, culture, geography-less jobs. However, what are we outsourcing? Like Karthik mentioned that they were actually contemplating Indonesia for tech jobs, and then so it's only tech jobs working from home, or what we want to give it to them, the coding, the backend coding, what are we doing, and what is our nature of business? Can we actually share the kind of data that we have, maybe the customer data or the employee data with them or not? uh, However, having said that, without setting up an office in a outside India location, it becomes slightly challenging in terms of data security, and we have all known how vulnerable these days we are. Specifically, there is no, I would say, privacy when we use our even our phones as well. Yeah. So that, keeping that in mind, that internet security in mind, if we can actually mitigate that particular risk, I think we are good to go. But we're slightly, maybe say 2 or 3 years away from going boundaryless, because that is a time we will take to really set up our fundamentals right, our internet security better, where we go ahead and kind of outsource our business and at a cheaper price. What BPO used to do almost like 10-15 years back. Yeah, so initially, in case you guys have worked, I have started my career with BPOs, so I know. We were so strict that we were not even allowed to take phones on the floors, on data security and all. Though we know hardly had phones at that time, Nokia 1100 and all. But still, we were not allowed with that phones as well. So we need to really, get that our security things up. Rest, I think in about next 2 to 3 years, we should be up and running.
Right. Right. So I think the two strategies that we talk about, one is global hiring, the other one like people from a different background being transitioning. I think both are great tools. Of course, with time they would evolve, they will mature a little more. I think only time will tell that which one turns out to be more effective. But I think it makes sense, as Karthik talked, that do some A/B test, try it out, see what works best for you. And I think, Puneet, in the very beginning, as you also talked about, that each company is different, right? Just like humans, each company have a different DNA, different needs, different situations which work for them. So I think like different strategies. It is also possible. There is no absolute black and white that this works better versus the other. Uh, but I think these are some of the interesting ways, tools which trying to hire globally, trying to be more open towards the backgrounds, etc., trying it out and see what works best for your organization. Might be an interesting way to solve the talent pipeline issues, availability of talent issues. Great. So I think a great conversation. Thank you so much, Puneet, Karthik, and Sachin, to join in and share the valuable insights and guidance and suggestions on solving these problems. Maybe I would just go one by one to take any closing remarks that you might have, for our audience to share on overall the bigger picture of hiring better, retaining better, and then I will hand it over to Dhruv for the closing remark. Maybe Puneet, maybe if we can go first with you.
Um, for saving cost, for hiring better, I think your organization has to really build a very, very good supportive culture. If I have an organization which is employee friendly, being enough. Yeah, if I have an organization where an employee can grow and learn, I think I'll be able to retain them well, and it'll be cost effective for me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Puneet. Maybe Karthik, I would request to you to share a closing remark next.
Yeah, I think Puneet nailed it, right? I think the average cost of replacement is 15% costlier, right? I truly believe retention, one, high benchmarks on hiring and super focus on retention. It's simple, it's not easy, right? I think one thing will be great if probably, it's usually all HR people talking. If we have two CTOs and two HR people talking, it might be far more interesting conversation.
Absolutely. Sachin, over to you for the last closing remark before we hand it over to Dhruv.
No, completely in line with Karthik and Puneet's thought over there. But just to add one more thing, that we should include the culture of diversity as well. We should not just focus on tier one, whether it's the companies or cities or colleges. Let's be mindful of that talent is available anywhere. It's all about giving them the right opportunity at right time and show them the right path, and they will do more.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a great session. Very, very privileged to be hearing from such a esteemed panel of guests that we have, industry leaders who were able to share great insights, both for people who might be trying to kind of, upskill and transition their career, and also for the people in our talent acquisition fraternity who are building, trying to solve the talent problem for their companies, which always is one of the most important problem to solve, right? If a company has great talent, rest of the things will automatically fall in place. So thank you so much. Dhruv, over to you to kind of conclude the session.
Great. Thank you, Abhimanyu, for actually moderating such an insightful conversation, firstly, and our panelists that have taken time out and actually shared workable insights to our audience. And so it's a great pleasure hosting all of you. Finally, thank you to all those who have taken time out to attend this conversation, this insightful conversation, rather. I would also like to thank Scalar, who has helped us curate this conversation and help bring some of the top leaders onto this platform and help create this confluence of insights. Please do not forget that your feedback is valuable and the survey link will be provided to you. So do give us your feedback. Again, this is Dhruv and great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.